The death of a public figure's child rarely stays contained within a single headline, especially when it unfolds in a place associated with luxury, privacy, and celebrity discretion. In this case, the loss of 34-year-old Victoria Jones has moved quickly from a brief breaking news item into a broader conversation about visibility, vulnerability, and how personal tragedies are processed in the public eye. Victoria Jones, the daughter of acclaimed actor Tommy Lee Jones, was found unresponsive on the morning of January 1st at a San Francisco hotel. Within hours, the basic facts were circulating widely. Within a day, official statements, dispatch details, and cautious language from authorities began to shape how the story would be understood and how it would not. What makes this moment different is not just who Victoria's father is, but how carefully each new piece of information has been framed. Words like suspected, according to dispatch audio, and no foul play. Suspected carry weight here. They signal restraint. They also leave space that audiences often try to fill on their own. This is not a story driven by spectacle or accusation. It is a story unfolding in fragments, guided by official sources, family statements, and the limits of what is publicly known. And yet, it resonates far beyond those facts, touching on recurring themes in celebrity culture: the tension between privacy and public interest, the lasting impact of family legacy, and the uncomfortable reality that proximity to fame does not offer immunity from personal struggle. As the investigation continues and the family asks for privacy, the focus shifts from shock to context. Not what people assume happened, but what can actually be said, what remains unresolved, and why this loss is being covered the way it is right now. In the early hours of Thursday, January 1st, 2026, emergency services were called to the Fairmont San Francisco Hotel after reports of an unresponsive woman in one of the guest rooms. According to information later obtained by People magazine, the individual was identified as Victoria Jones, the 34-year-old daughter of actor Tommy Lee Jones. Dispatch audio reviewed by People classified the call as a code 3 for the overdose color change. In medical terms, color change is commonly used to describe cyanosis, a condition associated with low oxygen levels in the blood that can cause bluish or purplish discoloration of the skin, lips, or nails. Emergency responders arrived at the scene, but Victoria was pronounced dead at the location. The incident occurred at the Fairmont San Francisco, a historic luxury hotel that regularly hosts high-profile guests. Shortly after the news became public, the hotel released a formal statement through its press director, Michelle Heston. The statement expressed condolences to Victoria's family and confirmed that the hotel was actively cooperating with law enforcement. Authorities as part of an ongoing investigation. At this stage, officials have emphasized restraint in their conclusions. A police source speaking to NBC Bay Area stated that there is no suspicion of foul play in relation to Victoria's death. Authorities have also made clear that the official cause of death has not yet been determined and that further examination is required before any final conclusions are released. On Friday, January 2nd, the Jones family issued a brief public statement through People. In the message, they thanked the public for expressions of sympathy and asked that their privacy be respected during what they described as a difficult time. The statement did not address the circumstances of Victoria's death beyond acknowledging the loss. Victoria Jones was the daughter of Tommy Lee Jones and his former wife, Kimberly Cluffley. The former couple also share a son, Austin Jones, who is 43. While Victoria largely stayed out of the spotlight in recent years, she had earlier appeared alongside her father in several film projects. Her acting credits include a role in Men in Black Thou in 2002, The Three Burials of Melquiades Estrada in 2005, and a guest appearance on the television series One Tree Hill in 2003. Court records reviewed by People indicate that Victoria had been arrested at least twice in the past year, including once on charges related to drug possession. These records were referenced in coverage as part of the factual background surrounding the case, though authorities have not publicly linked those incidents to the events of January 1st. As of now, investigators continue to gather information, and the medical examiner has not released a final determination regarding the cause of death. Public reporting remains limited to confirmed details from law enforcement, medical dispatch records, and statements from the family and the hotel, with no additional findings officially disclosed. Beyond the immediate facts, the death of Victoria, Jones has prompted a quieter, more structural conversation about how loss is contextualized when it intersects with fame. Not because of spectacle, but because of contrast. A private death, occurring in a public setting, tied to a family whose name is instantly recognizable, creates layers of interpretation, even when reporting remains restrained. In the entertainment industry, legacy often shapes perception before details do. Tommy Lee Jones is widely associated with longevity, control, and a carefully maintained public presence. That history influences how audiences process this story, not emotionally, but symbolically. The absence of public commentary beyond a short family statement stands out in an environment where visibility is often expected, even during grief. Media coverage so far has been notably conservative. Language has been measured. Sources have been clearly attributed. Even potentially sensitive elements, such as prior arrests and the mention of a suspected overdose, have been presented without amplification. That approach reflects a broader shift in celebrity reporting where credibility and advertiser suitability increasingly depend on restraint rather than escalation. Still, public attention persists, not because new details are emerging, but because the situation remains unresolved. When a cause of death is not immediately confirmed, interpretation fills the vacuum. The use of medical terminology like cyanosis, explained rather than dramatized, signals an attempt to inform without steering conclusions. It also subtly reminds audiences that certain realities exist regardless of status or setting. There is also an industry-facing dimension to this story. Children of well-known figures often occupy an ambiguous space, visible by association, but not necessarily by choice. Victoria Jones's acting appearances were limited and sporadic, suggesting a relationship to the industry that was neither fully public nor fully detached. That partial visibility complicates how her death is framed, not as the loss of an active celebrity, but not entirely as a private individual either. Public perception tends to shift at this point. Initial curiosity gives way to pattern recognition. Viewers recall similar cases, similar timelines, similar phrases used in official statements. The absence of foul play, the pending toxicology report, the emphasis on cooperation with authorities, these elements feel familiar. And familiarity in this context is what sustains attention. Importantly, none of this requires speculation to be effective. The significance lies in what is confirmed, what is withheld, and how those boundaries are respected. The family's request for privacy does not reduce interest, it reframes it. Attention turns from personal detail to structural questions about exposure, responsibility, and the limits of public knowledge. As this story continues to be covered, its weight does not come from escalation, but from accumulation. Each verified update, each carefully worded statement adds to a broader understanding of how celebrity-adjacent tragedies are managed in real time. Not as isolated events, but as moments that reveal how the media, authorities, and audiences navigate uncertainty together. And that dynamic, quiet, procedural, unresolved, is precisely what keeps this story relevant beyond its initial reporting window. When the confirmed facts are set aside, what remains is a series of unanswered questions shaped not by speculation, but by absence. The details that have not been filled in yet, by design or by process, invite closer examination of how this story is being told and why certain lines are not being crossed. One of the most noticeable elements is the speed with which boundaries were established. Authorities emphasized early that no foul play was suspected. The family quickly requested privacy. The hotel limited its statement to cooperation and condolences. Each of these actions reduces interpretive space, yet none of them fully closes it. What does it mean when a narrative is simultaneously constrained and unfinished? There is also the question of setting. A luxury hotel is typically associated with discretion, controlled environments, and managed risk. When an incident occurs in such a space, attention often shifts to systems rather than individuals. How are emergencies handled? What protocols are triggered? And why do these details matter more when the person involved is linked to a public figure? The language used in reporting deserves scrutiny as well. Terms like suspected overdose and references to medical indicators are precise but incomplete. They inform without concluding. Is this a reflection of responsible journalism, legal necessity, or an awareness of how quickly public narratives can harden before investigations are complete? Victoria Jones' prior interactions with law enforcement were included in coverage, but without emphasis or interpretation. The information was presented as context, not explanation. That choice raises its own question. Where is the line between relevant background and unnecessary framing, especially when the subject is no longer able to speak for herself? There is also the issue of legacy. How does being the child of a globally recognized actor affect the way a death is processed publicly? Would the same details have been reported if the name were unfamiliar? Or does recognition alter not just attention levels, but editorial judgment itself? Finally, there is the matter of time. Stories like this often shift dramatically once official findings are released. Until then, coverage exists in a holding pattern, active but restrained. What happens to public interest when resolution arrives? Does attention fade, or does clarity prompt a different kind of reflection altogether? These questions remain open, not because answers are being avoided, but because the process has not yet reached its conclusion. And in that uncertainty, the story continues, not driven by speculation, but by what has yet to be formally said. At this point, the publicly confirmed picture remains limited and carefully defined. Victoria Jones was found unresponsive on January 1st and pronounced dead at the scene. Authorities have stated that no foul play is suspected, and the official cause of death has not yet been determined. The family has acknowledged the loss, expressed gratitude for public support, and requested privacy as the process continues. What happens next will likely unfold through formal channels rather than headlines. Any additional clarity is expected to come from medical findings and official statements, not speculation. Until then, reporting remains anchored to what can be verified, with clear distinctions between confirmed information and unresolved elements. Stories like this often change tone once investigations reach a conclusion. Sometimes the narrative narrows. Sometimes it reframes the earlier coverage entirely. In this case, the next developments, if and when they arrive, will shape how this moment is ultimately understood, both within the context of the family involved and within broader discussions about public attention and private loss. As more information becomes available, we will continue to follow the story with the same measured approach, focused on facts, context, and clarity rather than assumptions. If you find this kind of reporting useful, you can support the work by liking the video and following for updates on related stories as they develop. And if you're watching this now, one open question remains. When information is limited and emotions are high, what do you think responsible coverage should prioritize? Speed, restraint, or context? The next video will look at how similar cases have unfolded once official findings were released, and what patterns tend to emerge when private tragedy intersects with public attention.